I could have just been in the room and I'm getting sued too just for being there, right?
Exactly.
So that's, wow. Were there any other like real big takeaways or kind of pivotal like mindset shifts as a result of that?
Yeah, the biggest mindset shift was when we are doing these deals, not only do we have to vet our buyers properly, but we have to make sure that we're always 100% transparent with the seller about what's going on. So basically, every time we assign a creative deal, even if we don't say it up front because we don't know if we're going to keep it or not, but if we decide to, we call the seller, we let them know.
All right, welcome back to the Revamp Podcast. Today got Mike Scarpa, half of the company Roaming with Mike, right? Your better half couldn't be with us today, Jay, right?
Yep.
But so you guys are out of Philadelphia, you wholesale houses, and you focus heavily on the creative side of everything, right?
Yep, absolutely, man.
Dude,
Yep.
there's a lot I want to unpack there, right? Because I've had this... Maybe after today, I'll think of it as an incorrect bias that trying to wholesale creative deals is just like almost impossible at scale. So I want to talk to you about that because it seems like you cracked that code and everything. But I want to take it back to the start, man. Like, how did you begin this journey into the world of real estate?
Absolutely, man. So it's kind of a funny story. So we were both working full-time, me and Jay. Jay was a real estate paralegal for a firm in Philadelphia, and I was working for a venture capital fund manager in Princeton. So it was right before COVID happened. We were kind of just in our normal ways. We're renting in a nice apartment in Philly and, got a dog, got the W-2s, living your normal 24-year-old lifestyle. And then COVID hit, we started working from home, and we realized pretty quickly that we were like, all right, both of us always had an entrepreneurial side to us. I used to flip cars off of Craigslist and stuff. Jay always had some sort of side hustle business going on, whether it was food catering, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And when COVID happened, we're starting to work from home. We're like, we cannot see ourselves doing this for the next 30, 40 years. There's no way. So growing up, my family actually had a couple like small multifamilies in town in Bayonne, New Jersey, where I'm originally from.
Okay.
And growing up, my dad did everything mom and pop style. If something broke, me and him are going to fix it, the whole nine. And I always told myself, there's no way I'm getting into real estate. Painted a little bit of a bad picture for me. So as we're sitting there, it's like probably mid 2020, right when everything was going on with COVID. The guy next door to our apartment was flipping a house. I never got his name. I never figured out who he was, but I took Roman out for a walk at lunch one day, and I'm like, you know what? Let me talk to this guy. Let me just see what he's got going on. He pulls up, brand new range, middle of the day, chilling with a coffee. I'm like, that looks like a lifestyle, right? So I started picking his brain. I'm like, hey man, like, I'm curious. Are you flipping the house? What are you doing? And he started getting into it with me, and he's like, I've been doing this for like 20 years. I got like 100 units around Philly. This is like one of 10 flips I got going on. And I started to just talk to him about how he got started. And then I went back upstairs to the apartment with Jay, and I'm like, I think we should really talk about
do this.
Yeah, we should really talk about this. So we went, right after that, we were like, all right, let's see, maybe we'll go to a meetup or something. Let's give it a shot. So Hone Houdini.
Yep.
He had a meetup at like this small little church up in North Philly. So we wind up going to his meetup, met people, started chatting, started networking. And after that, we were like, you know what? Let's hire a realtor. We don't know anything else. Let's see what we got. Let's get pre-approved. We wind up buying a small single family like 2-3 months later. So really fast.
Okay.
Really fast.
That is quick. Hell yeah.
And bought a single family in West Kensington. It was turnkey. We used the investment 20% down, put a tenant in there, Section 8. Had no clue what we were doing, but we were like, all right, I think we're onto something. Started cash flowing, and we still have it till this day. But then we looked at our finances, and we were like, well, we just burned our whole wallet.
Yeah, right.
What do we do now?
Yep.
So that was right around January of 21. So Jay was like, look, we both are the type of people where if we want to make something work, we're going to have to work towards it, and we're going to have to figure out something that works for us,
Yep.
right? We were nervous about using private money. One, we didn't know what the hell to do in terms of how to find it, what to do. And we were also like, well, we don't really know much. So if we go and borrow all this cash from somebody and we screw up,
Yep.
we're immediately in a hole. And the same thing with hard money. So right around that time, we went to an online meetup, and we were in like these breakout sessions. And we wind up going to a breakout room about creative finance, and we were wondering what it was. And there was this couple that was talking about how they've bought all these homes and how they wholesale these deals, and they're buying them with little to no money. And after that, I hit the guy up on Facebook, and I said, hey, look, I really loved what you were talking about in your meetup session. I'd love to talk to you about coaching, or can I pay you? And he was like, well, we don't really offer coaching, but basically push came to shove. I put some money in the face, and and things worked out. So
There you go.
right in about April, we started coaching with them. They were our coaches at the time. Their names are Jen and Joe. And we wind up going head first. And the main thing that we utilized then, and we still do today, is leveraging social media for leads.
Okay.
So we didn't have a budget for marketing. We didn't really have a budget for a CRM or anything. So right around that time, we said, if we're going to build a business, we really have to start from scratch. So we ended our lease at our apartment, moved in with my mom in North Jersey, stayed there for about 6 months. And while we were with my mom, we did about 4 deals.
Okay.
We wholesaled 2, and we kept 2, and they were all creative deals. And it was like a really good learning lesson for us to see, hey, we can buy properties with literally less than $5,000. So the 2 that we kept, we bought. I think we only paid closing costs.
Beautiful.
And the other 2 that we wholesaled is what helped pay for those.
Gotcha.
And after that, we really started to get consistent with organic marketing.
Okay.
So going live on Facebook, posting in your yard sale groups, right? And really throughout most of 2022, that's what we did. We didn't use any paid marketing or anything like that. And by the time June of 22 came around, we had made Jay's salary, I think, almost 2-fold from assignment fees.
Beautiful.
And we realized right now is our pivotal point. Our jobs were calling us back to the office, and we said,
Gotcha.
if we go back, everything that we've been doing for a year is gone.
Yep.
Right? So Jay said, I'm going to quit. I'm leaving. And she left, and I lasted all of a month.
Okay.
And then I wound up leaving, and we wind up going full-time. And then we really started looking into paid marketing and all that stuff. So very long-winded version, but
No, man, that's cool. There's so much value in that, and it's an inspiring story as well. So when you moved back into your mom's and everything, and you did 4 deals, you kept 2, wholesaled 2. So even the 2 that you wholesaled were creative deals as well that you assigned?
yes.
So let's talk about them. I want to hear about them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we were doing was we said, okay, we know that if we niche down into just Philadelphia, which we tried at first, we weren't really getting a lot of traction. We're competing with a lot of guys, aka you, right? And a bunch of other bigger wholesalers.
Not me. I don't market at all in Philly.
Yeah.
0, none. I hate Philly. Sidebar.
Fair enough. I feel you on that one, man. So we wind up branching out to the whole state of PA.
Okay.
We started marketing from Pittsburgh all the way up north to Erie, all the way across to Philly. And we wind up coming across a seller in a Facebook group who just had bought their house like a year ago at that point. They were behind on payments, and we basically just ran a script that our coaches had gave us, and they said, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. I'd love it. Hopped on the call with them. They got no money down. We wind up working with us and the attorney to help them through what's called a loan modification.
Okay.
Got their payments caught up, and then we assigned the deal for $10K
Okay.
to another investor. They used it as a long-term rental. And then a month later, we wind up finding a gentleman probably about an hour from that house, same method, posting in Facebook groups. He had a second home that he didn't want anymore. He had a ton of equity. I think he had like 90K in equity. And he basically told us, look, I need my price. I'm not flexible. I don't want to put it on the market. And when we looked the property up, it was beautiful. He just gutted the whole thing, like perfect Airbnb in the mountains. Like it was like a solid deal. So basically what we did was we said, look, I can't give you your price cash, but I could give you your price if you're open to some sort of seller financing. And he said, well, what does that mean? We explained it. And push came to shove. The final terms where we were to take over his mortgage at, I think it was like a 2.7% rate for the next 5 years. We structured it in like a balloon style, so with a wraparound mortgage, where he was getting no payments and no interest on his equity for 5 years. And he only wanted 5K down, so we had some skin in the game.
Okay. Okay.
We wind up posting that literally on Facebook. And we got a buyer in like a day for 20K assignment fee.
Really? Okay.
Yep. So then we were like, holy crap. Like,
yeah, this is working.
Yeah,
this
we're
is
like,
working.
Oh my God, like we just made $30,000 in a month and a half. Like this is like mind blowing to us at that point.
Yep.
A couple months later, same thing. We had a seller, we did a live video and we were just talking about how we helped that past seller. And somebody reached out to us from the live.
No shit.
And was like, hey, I have a similar situation. I have a second home. I have a lot of equity. It's turnkey. It's in a town called Greensburg, PA, which is out near Pittsburgh. And he was like, I'm open to doing some sort of seller financing, but I would need like $30,000 down. So we talked with him, negotiated it down to like 5K, kept it and turned it into a rent to own.
Okay. There you go.
So
that's pretty dope, man. So getting in the weeds with that one. So if that guy saw the Facebook Live video that you were doing and everything, was that somebody that already knew you and was like on your friends list, or was it somebody that was like connected through someone else and just happened to see it? Or
so what we used to do, and we still do it to this day, basically if I go live on my personal Facebook, Jay will be on her phone watching my live and sharing it into Facebook groups.
Okay.
So she was sharing it into like buy and sell groups, community groups.
Got you.
Just spamming
everywhere.
it.
Yeah.
And he saw it just like that.
Dude, that's cool.
Yep.
That's very cool.
And he just inboxed us. It was in like somebody wants to message you or like the requests. And I saw it and I was like, let's see what he's got to offer. And we walked through it and it literally was like a 30-day process.
Dude, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
It was cool.
A lot of people have like a massive fear around like going live on Facebook. Did you ever have that? Or like was the first time hard or weird?
Yeah, at first I was like, this is awkward. And then after a while, right, I'm really big on, making money, right?
Sure.
So as soon as I started to see like
results
from it, I was like, forget it. Yeah. You could call me whatever you want on live. I'm good.
Yep.
Jay is a little bit more hesitant. I'm more type A. Jay's a little bit more type B. She likes to be behind the scenes, and I'm the more vocal one, clearly. That's why.
hey, that's okay. That's the balance right there, right? That's the yin and yang.
Yep.
Okay, very cool, very cool. So you were having traction with this, and these are free leads at this point, right? Yep. So when did you decide that you were going to try to do some form of paid marketing, and why?
It wasn't until June of 22 when we went full-time. Where actually it was like maybe the month before we decided to go full time, we decided to start doing some paid marketing. We were doing about a contract a month from organic marketing, and we were doing like 10K a pop, assignment fees, 15, kind of spread around, and it was working well. But we knew if we went full time, the only way to get more consistent results and not having to bank on our time to get leads coming in was through marketing.
Yep.
So just like we've been doing with organic Facebook, we wind up starting to run Facebook ads.
Okay.
It was the cheapest kind of method for us at that point. So I think we started with like 30 or 40 bucks a day. And from there, we just started getting about, I think it was like 35 leads per week.
Okay.
Inbound.
Dang.
So it wasn't
bad.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It's till this day, we still do Facebook marketing. And it's been like proven for us that it's the cheapest cost per lead. I think.
Wow.
It's like
how are conversions on it?
It's pretty good.
Yeah?
So right now, for every 40 inbound, we have a contract.
Wow. Okay. Are you still averaging that 30 to 40 per week?
So back then, we were spending about 25 a day. Now we spend right around $100 a day
Okay.
in marketing. So probably, what is that, 3,100 a month, somewhere in there.
Yep.
We're averaging about 50 leads per week,
Okay.
which has been getting us, honestly, right around 4 contracts per month.
Okay. Dude, that's fantastic as far as, cost per contract. You know, if you're looking
Yep.
at anything sub $1,000 for cost per contract, that's freaking insane.
It's been really working well for us. The only thing I would say is because of, I guess, the market that we're in, PA, like we've tried it in hotter states like New Jersey or New York, and we've even tried it down south a little bit. The spend is based on the competition that you have in that market.
Gotcha.
So for the $100 a day, it's been just working really well in PA, and we've been doing statewide.
Okay. Okay. So how do you handle that when you do get a lead that is 4 hours away or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So we run everything is virtual. So from our team to our deals to the whole nine. So basically, we have a pretty simple process. We have a lead comes in, our VAs run our script with them via text message. So we never hop on the call with them to do a discovery call. The only time we hop on a call with them is for like that gray area, or like if they have a good motivation, or if it's just, hey, this person's ready to get closed out, let's hop on a closing call.
Interesting. Okay.
So we hop on with them, do the closing call. We sign the contract via Adobe or DocuSign.
Yep.
And we always ask the seller to send us pictures or a video walkthrough. We've actually never had kickback. They've always been really open to it because they'd rather not have to coordinate their schedule for us to come into the house or show up.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then once it's signed, we have our TC start on it, and then we utilize Facebook for Facebook and our buyers list for our dispo.
For dispo. Okay.
Yep.
Beautiful.
And then we do remote closings with a mobile notary. And
okay.
so we've done in the past 3 years close to 100 transactions. And the only sellers we've ever met and the only houses we've seen are the ones that we've kept. Other than that, we've never seen the houses.
So even you're not like even finding somebody in that area as like a boots on the ground, like, hey man, I'm going to pay you $100 to go take pictures and put a lockbox. Like you're kind of putting most of it on the seller.
So right now, if the seller lives in the house, as soon as we go under contract, our TC sends them a lockbox. They put it on the door or they hold it. They send us pictures. And then if it's vacant, if they can't send us pictures, we'll always ask them first. Then we hire a guy, like we literally go on Thumbtack, the app. And we look for like a handyman or like a local dude or even a Facebook group. And somebody goes, takes pictures for $100 and that's it.
Whatever it takes. No, I love that though. I mean, to simplify it to that level, like, because even me hearing you say that, it's like, you know, it almost seems too simple that it's like, there's no way that you could get a property that's a deal and the seller is going to do all of this stuff for you and everything, but you're doing it.
Yeah, man.
You're doing it.
It really stemmed from when we started. We just really didn't have a lot of money to have people on call to go take pictures, $200 a pop. And then if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, man. You can burn a lot of money real quick. Real quick.
And then the process just kind of stuck because it never has proven that it failed.
Yeah, right. So, dude, that's fantastic. So let me ask you, so you're focusing on creating a creative deal structure. First, I want to, anybody that doesn't understand like what creative deal structure is in the acquisitions world, can you elaborate on that a little bit for what it is?
Absolutely. So right now there's 4 main types of creative deals that we focus on. It's sub 2 or mirror wraps. So a little bit of a side note, instead of doing a straight sub 2 deal, we do a mirror wrap, which puts a mortgage and note in place for the seller that mirrors the underlying debt to make sure that they're safe and protected in case us or our buyer, we assign it to defaults.
Interesting. Okay.
And then we do wraparound mortgages, which is a sub 2 and a seller finance hybrid. And then straight seller financing and novations. I don't know if novations is like a super creative thing, but it's a little bit outside the box.
Yeah, it's outside the box. Yep. Okay. So my question is, do you ever try to make like straight cash offers on everything, or is it the intention that you have going into every like conversation with a lead that, all right, we're going to try to structure a creative deal out of this?
Yeah, so our script is like a 10 basic questions discovery, from like their why to their timeline, repairs, financial mortgage questions, stuff like that. And we always end the script with asking them like very basic non-industry term language. You know, typically we buy homes with seller financing. That means that we pay this, and this. If we were to do something like this, are you happy? If they say yes, absolutely, so-and-so, we hop on a call with them. If they say no, then we ask them, well, if we were to pay all your closing costs, buy it as is, and pay you cash, what's the least would you accept? And then we go from there. So we've done a lot of cash deals. It's just our main focus has always been creative.
Yep.
I've found that sometimes our cash deals sit for maybe a week and a half, where our creative deals, even if the entry fee, so an entry fee meaning like cash to the seller, closing costs, our assignment fee, is over 10, maybe 20%, we can get rid of them in like 3-4 days.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
And reason being is, with a cash deal, from what we've noticed, we always have to find the cash heavy guys or the guys that are rehabbers with private lenders, where with creative deals, we're assigning these deals to people that maybe don't have 200, 300K in private money, but they have 50K in private money, 60K, 70, and they're able to take these deals down quicker. And they're looking.
That's interesting.
The houses are turnkey most of the time.
Yeah.
So they don't really have to do rehab.
Okay. Interesting. So tell me a little bit more about, what did you say it's called when you're putting a mortgage and note in place to protect the seller as well as yourself? Elaborate on that a little bit.
Yep. So it's called a mirror wraparound mortgage. In Pennsylvania and in New Jersey, you can use it. In other states like Virginia and stuff, there's a deed of trust and gets a little bit fancy. But in Pennsylvania, with a mirror wrap, with a subject to deal, you are transferring the deed, the mortgage is staying in place, and you just have a limited power of attorney and authorizations to be able to talk to the mortgage, to the insurance company, stuff like that.
Yep.
With a mirror wrap, we put a mortgage in place that states that we are on, the mortgagee is us and the mortgagor is the seller, and we are to pay the senior lien holder directly, which is, say, Wells Fargo.
Okay.
And the total purchase price is the underlying debt of what's ever on the property, right?
Okay.
And then the note outlines the terms of the old debt. So basically, think about it, there's debt on a property, and then we just put another mortgage right around it. And
why, though?
So 2 reasons. One, it helps with the seller's debt to income. So typically with a sub 2 deal, they have to wait about 12 months before they can write off, or not write off, but subtract about 75%.
Not use that. Okay.
Exactly. Where with a mirror wrap, from day one, they have paperwork stating someone else is making it. They could show it to a new lender, and we've seen at least about 90% of the time that new lender will accept that.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Very cool.
And then on the other side, since we assign these deals, right, there's a lot of ethics that go involved with assigning creative deals.
Sure.
From our own personal experiences with buyers that we've had that kind of dropped the ball, as well as just people with bad intentions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So with putting the mortgage and note in place, we couple it with what's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And that states that if the buyer was ever late on a payment by 30 days, they can enact that deed in lieu of foreclosure, which doesn't automatically transfer the house back to them.
Back to the seller.
Correct.
Okay.
But they at least they avoid going to foreclosure court.
Okay.
Instead of like a 6-month process, it may be only a 2 or 3 month process.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And if you were to put a deed in lieu together, just with normal sub 2, it's not going to really hold as much weight in court as if you couple that with a mortgage and note, because the mortgage and note is a signed, notarized document stating that you promised to pay this.
Right.
And if you didn't, that's what the deed in lieu is for.
Got it. Okay. So have you had to exercise that whole process all the way through yet on something that you assigned?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the 5th deal we ever signed, we didn't really have a buyer vetting procedure. We were still new, and we were doing it with the mirror app at that point, luckily.
Okay.
That's
what I was going to ask. When did you put that in place? Because I feel like that's something you put in place after you already kind of get your ass burned a little bit, but you did have it.
When we started, luckily our attorney, so we were in the idea that we were just going to do straight sub 2 deals or take over people's mortgages and that's it. But our attorney out of Pittsburgh said, hey, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I buy properties this way. I want you guys to do it with a mirror wrap or with a wraparound mortgage in place. And they explained why. We were like, yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, we're going to take your advice on it.
Yep.
That was on deal number 1. On deal number 5, we had a buyer come in. He gave us a $20,000 assignment fee and paid closing costs. Within the first month, we got a text from the seller, hey, the buyer, because we had let them know the buyer is nowhere to be found, never made a payment, nothing. First month, dude. We wind up finding out that the buyer was actually, he knew what he was doing, so it was like premeditated for him. The property had probably about $80K in equity, right? And because that is free equity for a buyer or for ourselves, if we take a deal down,
right,
we can throw, and he said it was going to be his primary, he can throw a home equity loan on it, right?
Without getting rid of the first position?
Correct.
No shit.
Yep. So he threw a home equity loan on it for $60K and took that money, gave it to his family, and then he went to jail. We looked into him more after everything happened, and he was like in a lot of hot water for a lot of like crazy things.
Really?
And he basically was trying to give his family some cash before he went away for like 10 years.
Damn.
So the seller had to call the attorney. We kind of connected the two parties, and he wound up getting the home back like 3 months later and then put it on the market and sold it.
Wow.
Luckily, based on paperwork and stuff, like we didn't really have liability, but it was kind of luck of the draw that the seller was a really cool guy and was understanding and said, look, you were really transparent with me. Yeah. I knew you were going to be pushing it over to this guy. And all I'm asking for is some sort of guidance. He was like, I'm not upset with you, nothing like that. We got lucky.
That's good. That's really good.
So after that, we wind up building out like a whole buyer vetting procedure.
Wow. So on that though, like if he pulled a $60,000 HELOC, how, like even with the deed in lieu and all the docs he had to protect, what happened with that? Like
he assumed it, the seller. So
the seller assumed the 60 grand. Fuck.
Yep. So basically he sold it and he walked away with, I don't know, a couple grand, which sucked. There was really nothing that we could have done, but we had a call with our attorney afterwards, and she basically explained some things that we could do in the future to avoid this, right? Like we put clauses now in the mortgage and in the note stating that the buyer or whoever the buyer is can't put more debt on the property without the seller's consent and all that
makes sense.
stuff.
I'm really surprised that they could anyway.
Yeah.
That's...
So we just bought our primary, which is like right north of Reading. We bought it sub 2 or on a mirror wrap a couple months ago. And we have like 120 in free equity. So we had called a local bank and said, hey, look, if we were to do X, Y, and Z, or would you lend on it? And they said, yeah. So we got approval from the seller. So just kind of having options.
Yeah.
But
that's really cool, though, that you can do that. I mean, it sucks that you had to learn about it in a really crappy way, but You know, that is just, if nothing else, that's a testament to being honest, open, and transparent with your seller. Because, like you said, even just being the middleman, maybe, you know, you are obviously not directly
Yep.
responsible and to blame. But that doesn't matter in the case of a lawsuit, right? It's like
Exactly.
anybody that's tied to a lawsuit, you know, I could have just been in the room and I'm getting sued too just for being there, right?
Exactly.
So that's wow. So what was your, other than the vetting process that you guys ended up coming up with for buyers and everything, like were there any other like real big takeaways or kind of pivotal like mindset shifts as a result of that?
Yeah, the biggest mindset shift was when we are doing these deals. Not only do we have to vet our buyers properly, but we have to make sure that we are always 100% transparent with the seller about what's going on. So basically, every time we assign a creative deal, even if we don't say it up front because we don't know if we're going to keep it or not, but if we decide to, we call the seller, we let them know, hey, we're going to be bringing somebody in. They're going to be giving us a finder's fee. Everything stays the same. I would like you to meet them on a phone call. We do a 3-way phone call. We let them meet, just interact right, with us on the phone, and then we let them part ways so the seller feels somewhat comfortable and understands what's going on.
Gotcha.
Because with a cash deal, it's simple. It's just,
right.
You know, it's a sign they're out of the picture once closing happens, but they're basically married to each other for the next 28 years if they decide to keep it for that long.
Are most of the deals that you're structuring, are they like termed out that long essentially? Or, you know, is it more common for a seller to say, yeah, I'll do terms, but I want there to be some sort of a deadline balloon or?
So the only time we ever do a balloon payment or a term length is if there's equity involved.
Okay.
If there's no equity involved and we're just buying it for what they owe, we just take it over for the terms of whatever the underlying mortgage is. So if there's 15 years left, we just take it over.
Got it.
If there's equity involved, we've had a couple sellers give us 15 years, 20. We had a couple sellers give us 5. And our goal every single time is to try and get a balloon payment without monthly payments for the seller's equity. So some sellers, obviously, they're not going to want to wait 20 years for a big check. But the other thing we have to look for too is since we're buying houses for close to full price, we have to make sure that the term length also matches up with what you can do with the property at the end of the 5 years.
Yep. So does it seem like, I guess my question is, when you're assigning these, is it the goal of most of your buyers to hold them long-term as like a rental? Like not a lot of these guys are like, I want to flip this thing.
It depends on the deal. Like we have a few specific buyers who they look for low entry, like sub-2 mirror wrap deals that have equity where they could come in, do like a quick lipstick job, and then throw it back on the market. And then we have a lot of guys who like to do either lease options and rent to owns or long-term rentals.
Okay.
At least in PA. So.
Gotcha. And you have not branched out past Pennsylvania yet?
We have done deals in about 6 different states. So we've done deals. Majority of our marketing is in PA, but we always have people bringing us leads to help negotiate and close deals. And states, we do probably like 1 or 2 deals every quarter in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arizona, and Jersey.
Okay. That was mainly what I was curious about, was like the documents and everything related to different states. Like how much does it change from one to the next? Like even some of your mortgage or note stuff is probably different.
Yep, absolutely. So as we continue to grow into different states, every single time we're learning something different. So like, for example, one of our students, they did a sub-2 deal in Indiana. Indiana doesn't recognize deed in lieu of foreclosures. They recognize what's called a confession of judgment.
Okay.
Constitutes the same thing, different language. Virginia, it's not a mortgage state. It's a deed of trust state, right? And a deed of trust basically means that there's a third party, which is a trustee on the mortgage, right? And that is typically the closing agent.
Interesting. Okay. So it's just slight little differences
Yep.
and little things that you kind of have to adapt to wherever.
Yep.
But the underlying foundational process is still the same, right? You're still
Exactly.
having the same conversation with the
Yep.
same demographic of seller. So explain that a little bit. Like I understand that there's a lot of different reasons that as a seller, someone might consider doing this sort of creative structure, but I'm
Yep.
sure you have a lot more reasons and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really stems to the type of marketing that we do and what we put out there. So we really don't tell, like, our marketing on social media and stuff doesn't say that, hey, we're going to give you a cash offer, or do you have like a distressed home, stuff like that. Our marketing typically says, like, I can pay full price, I'll pay all your closing costs, and I'll buy it as is. So by saying that, sellers who really do need full price tend to reach out to us more.
Got
They
it.
couldn't sell it on the market. Their houses are really nice. They just bought it a few years ago. That's typically a lot of the sellers that we get. And then we always have people who reach out who need cash or who do have a distressed home.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of the majority of our marketing, which is how we kind of niche down to that demographic.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So just thinking through that, I'm sure that a lot of the common conversations that you have with sellers and the common objections and rebuttals and questions and everything is probably slightly different than we're used to, like, because we predominantly deal with people that do have, it's usually absentee owned and it's falling apart, terrible condition, not always a significant amount of debt on it or anything. But I'm sure that the conversation that you're having is slightly different. So what are some of the, like, common objections that you hear from sellers?
Absolutely. Main one being, if they are open to terms, their common objection is typically two things. If they have equity, so what happens with my money? When do I get paid? How long is this process? And then the one that I get on every single closing call is, what happens if you don't pay? And then that's where I go into. That's a great question. I actually was just going to talk about that. What we do is we put paperwork in place stating that if we're ever 30 days late, you would get the property right back.
Okay.
And it diffuses it.
Okay.
So our approach with these sellers, a lot of times, since we're not dealing with investors, is we do not use industry terms. We just use colloquial language and just keep it very baseline.
It's the best way to do it, though, man. That's
Yep.
the best way to do it. It's like I love everything about sales, right? And because really at the core of it, all that it is communication and often education, right?
Yep.
So it's like we're just educating our sellers on potential solutions to a problem that they have, and especially in what you're doing in the niche that you are, it's like, dude, you don't have a lot of other options. Like, I have something that I can put on the table for you here. And I understand it's unconventional, but you need unconventional right now.
Exactly.
Because guess what? Option A, B, C, and D, they don't fit for you. Like, I'm sure you know that. You already went down that path.
Exactly. And you saying that actually brings something else up. A lot of other objections I get too is if a seller is somewhat uncomfortable or say, I don't know, maybe I'll just call a realtor and put it on the market. I said, so I'll ask the seller, I said, so what would you think you'd put it on the market for? And they'll say, 400. And I said, okay. And just to confirm, you said that you owe like 370, right? Yep. Okay. So let's just break it down with you real quick, because even if I'm not the right buyer, it's okay. And like, we'll wish each other the best, but I do want to give you some advice.
Let me talk you through this. Yeah.
Exactly. And if we look at it, 400K, you take 6% out plus some of your closing costs, you're going to have to come to the table with 10 grand. And that's if you get full price. And we all know in this market today that it's kind of iffy, and we have no idea if that's going to work or not.
And you might have to do repairs. You might have to pull money out of your pocket, right? You got uncertainty.
Exactly. And then they're like, oh, man, all right. Yeah, okay. So I guess tell me a little bit more about how this works. Boom.
Yep.
So it's just educating, right?
100%.
Being patient and then just having a normal conversation.
Yep.
Everything that like we teach the people on our team is when you get on the phone with these sellers, they're normal people. Act as if they're your brother, your mom, your dad, whatever they may be, and just talk with them.
Yep.
Have that open conversation. And a lot of times, because creative financing is like this new buzzword, pace Morby, the whole thing, right? there's a lot of people going around calling expired, no equity listings, right? All that stuff.
Yep.
And they don't know what they're talking about, or they explain it wrong or whatnot. So when a seller hears about it, they're like, I already had 5 people talk about this. But what sets us apart and what sets you apart is the way that you explain it and the way that you handle them. You make sure that you're listening. It's just psychology and sales it comes down to at that point.
100%, man. 100%. So let's talk team.
Yep.
What's that look like?
So right now we have a dispo person that helps get rid of our properties and helps also find rent-to-own buyers, because that's another one of our main exit strategies if we keep it.
Okay.
We have a transaction coordinator, and we have 2 VAs in the Philippines.
Okay.
We used to have a couple acquisitionists on the team. Things didn't work out, so I kind of fell back into the closer role for right now. But that's something that we're actively looking for, is to bring on a closer.
Okay. I like it.
So
I like it.
Lean, small team.
Dude, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said to you before we started, I'm doing the same thing right now, and there's nothing wrong with that. Run lean and mean while there's still so much uncertainty, which I want to touch on that too, right? Because I think that's why, to your point, like a lot of these other gurus that are pushing this right now with the creative deal structure and everything, it makes sense, right? Because where we're at right now, interest rates, even just isolate interest rates for what it's worth, right? That makes sense as to why sellers may want to consider selling on some sort of creative structure, and buyers would love to lock in a loan at a sub 3% interest rate or something like that, So I think there's a lot of potential for that to even expand further than probably what you're already doing right now,
Yeah, absolutely. The craziest thing is when we started, we would call sellers, agents would reach out to us, stuff like that. They never heard of what we're doing. Not that we're like a pioneer by any means, but it wasn't as common, I guess, just 3 years ago. Now, when we talk to a seller, they're saying, I had like 7 people offer me this, or I'll reach out to an agent for like, I don't know, something that I come across, and they're like, yeah, we've had about like 15 people call us already.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's like starting to pick up. So now me and Jay are looking, and we're like, all right, we're going to need to adapt a little bit. What are we going to do? Now what we're doing is we're kind of going back, because we got away from our organic stuff for a while. Now we're going back to being consistently on social media for organic marketing purposes. And since then, we've been we're reaching a whole different demographic.
Yeah.
Yesterday I went live and I talked about a deal that we locked up of a seller in pre-foreclosure. And I had a guy comment on it. I've never met him before, never heard of him. He said, this sounds great, man. I may have a property that works like this. And I'm like, it's probably just a daisy chainer or somebody looking to pass it off. And he inboxes me and he says, hey, man, I have a property in Lancaster, PA. It's my personal home. I watched your live video and I immediately related to it, and I need your help. And right before I came here, actually, I called him, and he can't afford his mortgage anymore. It's a turnkey multifamily. It's got a 3% interest rate, and he's looking to walk away with like 10 grand in his pocket. And that's it. So going back to our organic old style has been helping set us apart in terms of all the other competition that we got, from cold calling to text blasting to the Facebook marketing that's paid.
Wow. Dude, that's really cool. That's really cool. So on any given month in the past, let's say 6 months or whatever, like what's your average spend across everything?
So the break even for the business in its entirety is $7,500.
Okay.
A month. That's between our VAs, all the software that we use, and our marketing. We try and keep the overhead as
Dude, that's really low, especially for the amount of volume you're doing. That's fantastic.
It's really low, and sometimes I'm like, shit, let's pump it up. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend more. But right now, the break even is $7,500. In terms of marketing, we spend, I think it's like right around $3,800 or $4,000 a month in marketing.
Okay.
And the rest is just, miscellaneous expenses. And
dude, I love that. Because that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people, when they do start and they're generating leads really cheap and they're starting to get some traction, that's usually the reason that they convert over to some sort of paid marketing, is because of the consistency, right?
Exactly.
It's like, you know, it's easy for somebody to be like, oh, I'm just going to do drive in for dollars, and who cares what their acquisition strategy, dispo strategy, who cares? It's easy to do 2-3 deals a year like that, right?
Exactly.
But it's hard to do 2-3 a month, every month, with stuff like that. So the fact that you kind of cracked the code and found a way to, even with spending money, you know, it's like, dude, again, for having a sub $1,000 cost per contract is freaking ridiculous. That's incredible. Kudos.
Thank you, man. We haven't known anything different. I've never tried direct mail. I've never tried cold calling, text blasting. We've always just kind of stuck to what we've known, which is, again, maybe why we haven't like exploded. But we kind of set a goal for ourselves, me and Jay. We said we really don't have this grand goal to be doing 10, 15, 20 deals a month with a team of 8 people and having this big operation. We're happy running a lean, organized machine that's well-oiled and that's consistent and that we can depend on.
Dude.
And that's kind of what it came down to.
That is so fucking important to like have clarity on, because that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask you, like, what is it that you really want to do in the next year, 2 years? I hate looking 5 years. That's way too far down the road, you know? But like, so one of the mastermind groups I'm in, it's so often that you see somebody come into the group and as they came in, it's like they're crushing it. They're making a lot of money, but they're a solopreneur, right? They don't really have a team. Maybe they have a couple VAs or something. And then they see a lot of other guys that are doing a couple $1 million a year and have big teams, have offices, have all these parallel businesses and everything. And they think that that's the next step, right? Because, well, this guy's doing more than me. So for me to do more, I have to replicate that. And for a lot of guys, it's like, it's pushing them down a path that it's not really aligned with what their goals or vision was in the first place. Like their goals and vision was to make whatever, $500,000 a year net and not have to work 40 hours a week or whatever, or be able to go on 20 vacations a year. And instead, because they're chasing what everyone else is doing and going towards, because, oh, well, this guy's doing 10 million a year in revenue, so I want to do 10 million a year in revenue. And they end up foregoing everything that they wanted to try to go and pursue this path, and it makes them fucking miserable, you know?
And then a lot of times they fail because...
Dude, absolutely.
They get... I'm personally subject to this, right? So me and Jay, after we had gone full-time, we said, we're going balls to the wall, right? We're turning it all the way up. And we got 2 acquisitionists on. We turned our spend way up. We were doing 8 deals per month at that time, and things were moving great. But now we're paying commission to people. We have a lot more overhead. What we were making wasn't substantially more bottom line for us than when we were running lean. And then it was actually really stressful. And we just said, you know what? Like after things didn't work out with the acquisitionists, we said, you know what? Let's go back to a lean, thin machine that works for us, right? We're cool making multiple 6 figures a year. Doesn't have to be like a 7, 8, figure thing, right? Because grass, from what we've seen, grass isn't always greener.
It's not.
And the more that you make, the more that you're spending too.
100%. Right? And that's the thing. Like as you're going through that growth phase and hiring people and creating more systems and processes and internal company structure and all the other shit, employee handbooks, all this stuff, right? It's like you're not seeing a linear growth in your profit. You may end up seeing some sort of comparative measure between what's going out and revenue coming in, but not profit, right? Exactly. Most of the time when you're growing and scaling, you're not as profitable if you're even making any money at all. Like scale costs a lot of fucking money and causes a lot of headaches as well.
Exactly.
And I learned a lot of this going through the process myself as well, right? I am a product of it. That's why I can speak so well on it, because I've lived it, brother. I've lived it. Unfortunately, I have something broken in my freaking brain, and I still want to do that. I still want to pursue this path because I'm insane. But with saying that, it's like, well, you do have to be cognizant of what's going on in the market, what's going on around us and everything. And does it make sense for me right now with where we're at, even though I do have a lot of internal company policy and structure and onboarding already set up and in place, still does it make sense right now with where we're at economically and with the real estate market specifically, and with most of the sellers that we're dealing with? Like, I don't think we even have the ability right now to do the volume that we were doing a year and a half ago without changing a lot of other things that we're doing as well. So, I still do want to achieve like the scale. Really, like my goal is I want to be able to do 365 deals a year. You know, we're not doing that this year.
Yep.
We're probably not doing that next year. Maybe the following. You know, we'll see how everything unfolds.
That's cool though.
And that's, I don't know, that's a crazy sidebar, but,
no, that,
you got to be clear on what you want.
Exactly. And really you have the clear vision that clearly you have an office, you have a team, you have an assistant, the whole nine, right? Like that is your vision. And like kind of why I'm saying this is because there's a lot of people out there who get this comparison syndrome.
Right.
I fail to it or subject myself to it all the time. You open up your phone, you're on Instagram. I see Tiffany and Josh High, if you know who they are, with Results Driven. They're crushing like 10 deals a week. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, we should be there, right? Or, I see other guys who are, they're buying rental properties out the wazoo, right? And I'm like, we should be doing that too, right? It's really easy to let that get to your head.
It is.
It's just what works for you. What is your end goal with all this? Do you need to have 10 million in the bank account, or are you comfortable living off a multiple six-figure salary working for yourself, right?
Yep.
And having some rental properties and a couple other businesses.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So,
dude, that comparison is like the worst thing that you can do.
Yep.
It really is. I think the only way that comparison in that scenario that you just gave, it's like, okay, well, I can look at these people and they're doing 10 deals a week or whatever. I think the only way that is healthy is to look at that and be like, well, they're doing that. They're human. I can do that too.
Exactly.
Not look at it like, man, I suck because I'm not doing that. And, especially like it's easy to look at, oh, well, this guy started just like a year ago and he's doing all this and I've been doing it for 5 years or whatever it is. And it's like, man, he's having so much more traction and success. That's a terrible thing to do to yourself,
Yep. And it also creates kind of like shiny object.
It does. It does.
The entrepreneur kind of wave, when you're at the lows, you're always like, you're in that survival mode. You're like looking around like, crap, do I need to change this in the business? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Right? Mm-hmm. And then when you're at the top, you're like, oh, everything is great. Everything I'm doing is perfect. So it's trying to like bridge the gap between the highs and the lows, make it more linear, and just making sure that you're just staying focused. And what we've noticed is whenever we break focus, we always hit a quick lull right after that.
Yeah.
And then when we refocus, we start to climb up again. A couple months ago, and again, just being totally open, I had a couple guys come to me and say, hey, we get all these leads on these big commercial properties in Florida, all that stuff. Do you have any buyers? I had a buyer who always talked about wanting like these big 100-unit places. I started getting sidetracked, and I was like connecting the two. We were going to do a big deal in Tampa, Florida, like a 200-unit property. I was all excited, and things kind of they fell apart. They didn't work out. And because of that, I had lost focus on what we were doing.
Yep.
We didn't really get any deals for a couple weeks or 2-3 weeks. And now that I told myself, and me and Jay talked, and we said, all that's gone. We're cutting the cord there. We refocused. Now we've gotten 3 contracts in the past 7 days.
Beautiful.
So it's like just refocus, and you can see where if you keep your head down, you keep your blinders on. That's all that matters. Dude,
it's a great phrase and so true that where focus goes, energy flows, or I think I messed that up, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's so noticeable, like especially as I think it's true not just for business owners, entrepreneurial type people, but for anyone, right? It's like what you focus on is going to grow no matter what, hands down.
Exactly.
You know, and it's really easy because I think anybody that's entrepreneurial, we all have that shiny object syndrome.
Yep.
Not even a little bit. I think probably massively, right? So it's a discipline because it's also really easy, like in what we do, speaking from my own experience, right? It's like I've flipped a lot of houses. I have a rental portfolio, right? But even when you look at it for what it's worth, even though I've done that in the past and everything, that is different from what I do in my wholesale organization, right? It's not the same. Just because I'm dealing with investment property and the wholesale company, that it's the same if I decide to go and buy a couple of flips. It's not. That's different, man. It's another thing in its entirety. And it's really easy. And that's a lot of the stuff that I dealt with in the last year and a half was when I bought this office and I had a bunch of major projects going on and my attention got diverted like crazy away from the wholesale company. And yeah, dude, like it almost killed us, you know? Like it's no joke. It's no joke. You got to have that focus. And that's the reality, man, was while I was going through that, I was cognizant of it. Like this is my baby and this still does need my attention. So it's like I was still putting in the time and I was still putting in the effort, but we were kind of like navigating a bunch of different market changes and shifts at the same time anyway. So it's like, yeah, all right, I may have still been able to devote 40 hours a week to the wholesale company while I was devoting another 50 hours a week to all the other issues and bullshit that I was dealing with. But at that particular time, the wholesale company probably needed me 80 hours a week, you know?
And it comes down to you can feel like you're showing up every day, but your brain is half somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have the full attention. Because I kept looking at it the past few months, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong right now? What's going on? Started getting nervous. Like you start to get that in your stomach, like, oh crap, like something's got to give. And then when we cut the weight, I want to call it, everything started to come back again. And I was like, oh man, it was just really, I wasn't fully in the game. I wasn't fully in it. That's all. So.
It's super interesting, man. Like that was kind of one of the mental safety nets that I kind of always had in place for myself was since I had done things on my own, like as I started, right? It's like I had flipped houses entirely on my own with not even like hiring a single contractor, right? Like I've bought rentals, I've wholesale, like I've done things on my own, right? So I guess even a year ago, right? It's like that the most we ever got up to, we were spending like $60,000 a month, like at our peak, just in marketing. That wasn't like our other overhead or salaries and all that shit. So it kind of got crazy and out of hand. However, here's the issue, right? It's like when things are going good and you're spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month in marketing and the revenue's there to support it, it's like, okay, wonderful. That's good, you know? Even when you're only doing 3x return on ad spend, it's like you're bringing in good money. Things are trending in a good direction, right? But then you start taking that attention and focus away and everything. It's like, wow, now if I take my eye off the ball, it's going to turn into a real leaky bucket really freaking fast, you know? And it did. And that's the issue is in this industry, it's like we have a really quick cash conversion cycle, all things considered, right? It's like for us, and we don't even track it from like when marketing goes out. We usually track it from like when a lead comes in till we close. It's like generally like, you know, between 60 to 70 days is our cash conversion cycle. That's pretty quick comparatively to flipping houses or something like that. But still, when you can't really see changes that are happening in real time because your revenue isn't going to be affected. Like if this is a slow month, we're not going to realize that until 2 to 3 months from today, right? So
I'm curious, what is like your main marketing channels that you guys utilize?
Direct mail.
So you do direct mail?
A lot of direct mail.
Cool.
Now, when we were doing a crap ton a year ago, it's like we were also running TV that was like 18 grand a month itself. So super expensive. But yeah, I've always been a direct mail guy. I love direct mail. A lot of the other stuff that I've done hasn't always worked out well for me. Like some of I've never had success with cold calling. I've never had success with SMS. That's a whole nother story that I'm kind of bitter about, you know, but yeah, mail has worked for me.
That's awesome. I know I've heard, like, we have never done direct mail. I can't even begin to touch upon it, but I've heard from everybody who uses it, typically the profit per deal on the direct mail is substantially higher than most other forms. I don't know if that is true or not. It's just from what I've heard.
I can't even really speak that well to it myself, right? Because I've done pretty much everything else, but I haven't had a lot of success in other things. So it's not a fair comparison, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's like we ran TV for a year. That was actually one of our worst campaigns. Like even when TV was good, we were doing like a 3x return on ad spend. And same thing, you know, it takes a while to start to see the diminishing results and everything, you know, and by the end, once it got down to like under a 1x month over month return on ad spend, it's like, all right, got to pull the plug, you know, it just doesn't make sense anymore, you know?
Exactly.
Because the way that I looked at it anyway, not that it's right or wrong, but the way that I looked at TV, since we were doing so much direct mail and other marketing as well, was almost from a perspective of, I'm okay with breaking even with this campaign because it's helping with branding and it helps with credibility, right?
So if somebody gets a direct mail on the thing, then they see you on TV.
And that's the thing. There's not even really a wonderful way to ever track that or know outside of simply asking someone, hey, have you ever seen us on TV or anything like that? And you don't know, even when you're asking that question, if they're going to remember, but... You know, it could have planted a seed in their mind, and just in the back of their mind, they're like, I feel like I've seen that name before, and I got this piece of mail right here. I'm going to open it, you know?
That's cool.
So, but it's not trackable. So that's tough, right?
Wow.
But
it's impressive, man.
Hey, there's pros and cons to all the different methods and strategies and everything. And I'm envious of a sub $1,000 cost per contract, you know, like that's fantastic.
I guess there's, again, pros and cons to it, right? Like our average assignment fee is like $13,500.
Okay.
So it's not huge, right? Like, so we're not reeling in like $30K assignment fees. Like our typical is around 10. Sometimes we hit some 20s. Our biggest deals that we've ever done in terms of wholesaling were cash or Airbnb style creative deals. But the normal, like ones that we kind of just churn to keep the lights on and keep everything flowing and making money, they're typically anywhere from 10 to 15K assignment fees.
Okay.
On a monthly basis.
Okay.
So it's, you know, we're spending $3-4 a month, and then we have some overhead. So we're doing 4 deals a month. Typically one deal pays for the business, and then the rest is kind of just gravy.
Dude, that's fantastic. So, real quick, I want to, we'll wrap up here in a minute, but
I know we're going to go all day, man.
Gonna go all day. We can, man. I can talk about this shit forever. But so thinking through, like, just thinking through the entire process from your perspective, right? So from some of the social media stuff, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, how many leads per week are you handling right now? Like across all the different stuff, some of the social media stuff, some of the organic stuff?
It's anywhere from 50 to 60 inbound leads per week.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's right around there. We're typically averaging from our paid marketing right around 50. It's super consistent, which is why I like the social media ads. Yeah. It's a dial. Like we know that if we spend $100 a day, we know for a fact, week over week, we are going to get 50 leads per week. If we dial it down to $60 a day, we'll probably be somewhere around 30 leads a week, right? And then the organic stuff, it's not as consistent, but it's as consistent as you are.
Right. Yep.
On there.
Yep.
So, you know, like some weeks we can have maybe 1 lead come in from the organic stuff we're posting. And then other weeks we have 5 or 6, right? The other day I posted, it was just kind of testing some things out, and I'm always looking at new ads to try. And I posted something in an Airbnb group in the Poconos. I got 24 organic leads in like 4 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just sellers like, I got one, my address is this. They inboxed me on Facebook. Like, it was just like instant.
Huh.
Which is how we used to do all of our deals.
That's really cool, dude. That's really cool. Huh. Just thinking through that. I have so many questions. So many questions. So many ideas. So one of the things that we deal with a lot when we're not ever actually actively marketing to like low equity, no equity, upside down type stuff. Obviously, we still end up running into those sellers and situations though. And like we have one that we're dealing with right now. And I don't know why it seems that it's so common, but do you run into like when you have a potential seller that is like a month away from getting foreclosed on and they are just so unrealistic about like the amount of money that they want in their pocket or else they'll let it go? Like I can't tell you, even in the past few months, we've had so many people that are like, if you can't put 100 grand in my pocket, fuck it, I'm letting the bank take it. It's like, well, I can't put 100 grand in, but I can put 20. Like, so you're going to let the bank take it and walk with nothing? Like that doesn't even make sense to me.
Yep. We have had a multitude of those sellers. I call them people that bury their head in the sand.
Yeah.
Right? They just don't want to deal with it, and they feel as if somebody owes them something just because of how they are. There's been some people where we've talked them out of it and say, look, like, do you have plans on buying a home after this one goes? Some people say, I'd love to, like, I'd have nowhere to go. I said, well, don't count on it because if you let the bank take it, you're not buying anything for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, what do you mean? And then your education comes in.
Yep.
And then we have had some people who just are unrealistic and they just don't get it. And I tell them, look, I really hate to end the phone call like this, but unfortunately, I don't think I can help you right now.
Yeah.
I can do this, this, and this. And I'm even willing to get all of your arrears caught up. That's no problem. But I can't do this and everything else that you want.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to kind of chalk the one up. And it sucks because you don't want to see the seller.
Right. It's like, dude, I have a solution for you that's literally a win-win. Everybody makes out. Like, man, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And it's sad because a lot of times, like, people do fall on hard times. Everybody falls on hard times, right?
Yep.
You know, I hope that there's somebody there to grab my hand when I'm down in a fucking hole, right?
Yep.
You know? Like,
exactly, man.
Oh, man. So, but you're out here making it work on the deals that you can, making things happen for people.
Absolutely, dude.
So what do you think is the most, like, that just gave me the idea. What do you think is like the most meaningful transaction you've ever done? Is there one that like sticks out for a reason, maybe something that it was really impactful for the seller or?
I've actually never had anybody ask me that. Now that you say that, now I have to think about that one. Honestly, it was actually a cash deal.
Yeah?
Yeah, so it was a cash deal, and then I also have a creative one. But the cash deal, this dude reached out to us. The poor guy was like living, wasn't even a house. It was like a shack down in Lancaster County. He had 2 weeks until the tax sale was coming. And he basically was like, I need $100K or whatever it was. And I offered him 50. He accepted it. And somehow, some way, I don't know, we got the lien letters back. We found a buyer in like 24 hours.
Beautiful.
And we got it closed in 2 weeks. And the guy, like, actually, when we closed on it, we went to go meet him because we wanted to make sure he was all right. He was an older dude, and he just started, like, bawling his eyes out. And he was like, this is the only money I have. He had, like, negative, like, 10 grand in his checking account, and he had, like, nothing. So when we did that, it was like, even I got emotional. I was like,
dude.
Holy shit. Like,
yeah, it's like, because it's so easy to just, Like, especially once you start doing volume and everything, it's like, well, this is normal. You know, we handle these problems for people and we make money and everything works out, right?
Yep.
But when you look at it from the big picture, it's like, dude, you're doing something really meaningful and impactful, specifically with what you're doing. I mean, we still are in like the cash deals that we're typically doing, but even more so when you're structuring some sort of creative deal for someone that really doesn't have any other options.
Now that you say that, it took me a little bit to think about one, but there's one deal that we did in Pittsburgh, and this deal like will stick with me forever because one, we learned a ton on it, and two, the seller till this day, we send each other Christmas gifts.
No crap.
Yeah. So the lady's name was Dana. It was a little town outside of Pittsburgh called New Kensington. The house was beautiful, like 5 beds, 7 baths, like 4,000 square feet. She bought it literally a year ago. She bought the house. Month later, her job let her go. And she was the sole income for the household. Got totally behind on her payments and went into the COVID forbearance program at the time. But the COVID forbearance program was coming to an end, I think, at the end of the year. And she contacted us in October with the anticipation knowing that she's screwed. So basically, what we talked with her, what she owed on the house was like 40 grand more than it was even worth. Outside of her getting a mortgage on the house for like 240, she threw another $60,000 solar lien on it. So what we did, she was current on the solar lien. She was 30,000 behind on the mortgage. So we worked with her and we helped her through a loan modification. We got the loan mod all situated. But what happened is with some people with loan modifications, they have what's called trial periods, which means that there's a 3-month payment plan and that you have to make all of those payments or else they will not do the loan modification. And if you miss a payment, they immediately foreclose on you.
No crap.
So we had submitted the paperwork and we didn't know that because we had never really done a loan modification at the time. And we wound up finding a buyer. He was giving us $15K assignment fee, but we had told him we have to wait this out. Dana had told us up front that she said, I'm now working. I can make the payments. It's no problem. The first payment comes on the day the payment's due. She told us, I can't make it. I can't do the payments. So we said, well, this lady has no other options. If she puts it on the market, she's coming to closing with a check for 60 grand. Like, no questions asked.
Yep.
It didn't cash flow as a long-term rental by any means. And the guy who was buying it was going to use it as his primary. So he found like a homestead type buyer. So what we did was during escrow, we created a lease with the buyer and with the seller. And the buyer during escrow made all of those trial period payments for the seller.
Okay.
And then once that was done, they threw all the payments on the back. Then we closed. And her credit score went from like 580, and it jumped all the way up to the high 600s.
No crap.
Because of that.
Dude.
And ever since then, she's like been our like number one advocate. Like if people need like some sort of review or something like that, or if somebody wants to talk to a seller we work with, she's always like, just send them to me.
Really?
We send each other gifts. She's always like texting me, hey, how's everything going?
That's so cool, man.
It's really cool.
That's super impactful. Right?
So,
that's wow.
It was a 6-month process from start to finish. It was a 6-month close. So.
That's crazy, dude.
It was wild. It was a long one. And 15,000 over 6 months. It is what it is. But she would have lost the house in a month and a half if we didn't help her.
Dude, absolutely. And that's the thing is, it's so common that with the sellers that we're working with that we're basically trying to educate them too. Like, going back to the almost pushing someone away, right? Like when somebody tells us, oh, well, if I can't get this number, I'm just going to list it. Okay, you should. Like one of the first things that we're telling people is if top dollar is your top priority, yes, you should go list it with an agent, 100%, right?
Exactly.
If that's what you want to do, go that path. Yep. But if you don't want to deal with A, B, C, or D, or you don't have money for repairs, you don't have this, right? So you're going through the entire educational process and everything. So it's like, I guess in my mind, before this conversation, it's like, I viewed it as similar. Like, you don't really have many other options here, right?
Yep.
If you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, this cash offer, that's all that you have on the table, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Just thinking through it. Yeah, it's really interesting because I've never, still to this day, I've never done any sort of sub 2 deal.
Really?
I've done some creative things in getting deals done and everything, but no, never anything like that. Like thinking back, some of the different people that I've had in sales roles over the years, like I've even done trainings on it for my sales teams and everything as a, hey, this is something that you need to, at very minimum, understand what it is.
In case it comes up.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, the last thing you want is to not seem educated as a home buying, investor, right?
Yep.
So you got to be educated on it. But I pretty much like strongly pushed, we don't want to go down that path though.
Yep.
And a lot of that is probably the incorrect bias that assigning something where we are creatively structuring something and being the middleman, like between two other parties, just sounds like a logistical nightmare. But you're doing it and you're crushing it, right?
Yeah, man. So one thing I will say is this: if I'm assuming you have a transaction coordinator.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So one thing, it's not much harder than a cash deal. There's two more steps involved. One, we get what's called a pre-closing packet, which is like halfway through the escrow process, we get like some acknowledgments and an addendum basically stating that the seller understands the type of sale it is, all that. An authorization to release and all that jazz. A mortgage login portal sheet. So when we close on the house, or if a buyer does, they have a way to log into the mortgage portal, update the payment info.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Got it.
And then some just general seller information. And then until closing, unless there's like some wild, funky thing going on with the deal, there's not much more that goes into it. The only difference is at closing, instead of just having a deed and some other things signed, you need a power of attorney, some other authorizations to release, and that's about it. It's probably like 6 additional forms.
Wow. Okay.
It's just the education process for the seller is much different. That's all.
Are you also like often having to educate your buyers?
Not necessarily, because our buyers that we target are only looking for creative deals.
Okay.
And one thing that we do as part of our buyer vetting process is we won't work with a buyer who's never done a creative deal before, learning from our past mistakes.
Okay.
We ask for 2 recent HUDs or settlement sheets for creative deals that they've done. We ask for their LLC documents up front, as well as their proof of funds for the entry fee.
Got it. Okay.
So
I'm just thinking, I know that that's one of the things that a lot of people are scared of is the due on sale clause and all that stuff. I didn't know if that's something that you're kind of like educating your buyers through. Hey, this is how you need to set things up and structure things. So,
yep. So we have a pre-close email that goes out. So Jay is huge on SOPs and standard procedures. She works for the law firm. That was something that they stressed, and she kind of just developed it. So we basically have standard email templates for every step of the way during escrow. And one of the main emails that goes out right before closing to the buyer is a list of instructions on how to, so 2 things that'll activate the due on sale clause: improper insurance, and if you don't pay, right? So 2 things that she gives is, 1, the instructions on how to get the mortgage portal set up, the TC, and then the other one is how to set up your insurance properly with examples.
Okay.
And we give that to the buyer before closing so they know exactly what to do.
Got it.
So it's, again, an education process. Even if they don't, we still send the email.
Right.
So right now, like with the insurance, we take all of our properties in a land trust that we buy creatively.
You do, but you're not forcing that on.
Correct.
Okay.
We can't. We advise them to. But if they're like, I want to close in an LLC, that's cool. You just cannot close in your personal name.
Okay.
With a creative deal. There has to be some sort of anonymity with the bank, because if the bank sees titles in a person's name and the mortgage is in this,
Right.
and they look into it,
That makes sense.
you're done.
That makes sense.
How do you get around the due on sale clause? It's actually pretty easy. This is like the gray area, but what you would do is worst case scenario, due on sale clause gets called, because it has been happening a little bit more frequently recently. You would quit claim deed the house back to the seller.
Okay.
And on the same day, while they're signing that quit claim deed, you put a land contract in place between you and the seller. So you still contain control of the house,
Okay.
but you're showing that the deed is back in the seller's name, and now the bank gets off your butt. And you just have to switch the insurance a little bit.
Got it. Okay. That's really interesting.
Yep.
Huh.
So if a seller asks about that, because a lot of people do know about it, or they'll type online, like, and then due on sale clause, the first thing that pops up.
Right.
That's how we explain it to them. I said, look, like, due on sale clause is something that can happen. Yes, I'm not saying it's not. The likelihood of it is not high, but if it does, this is what we would do.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, okay, cool. So, like, we would be safe. I said, yeah, look, I don't want to lose the property just as much as you, because I've put money into it. I have, my investment goes down the drain.
Right.
So then they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We
There you
have
go.
common
Again,
interests.
Yeah. Just the transparency and the educational process and trust and rapport.
Yep.
It's huge, man.
Exactly.
Huge. Wow. If there's one thing to take away from this conversation, right? Because that's one of the things that I preach a lot to people, especially guys that are trying to get their feet wet in wholesaling and never really done any sort of sales or anything before. It's like, dude, the most important and easy thing that you can do is be honest. And by the way, especially when you're new, being honest, a part of that is when you don't know something, even if you're talking with a seller, it's okay to be like, I really don't know, but I'm going to figure out an answer to that question that you have,
Yep.
Like, that's okay.
That's wild that you say that. And we tell everybody on our team, if you don't know something, actually, that's a great question. I'm going to ask my partner, and I'll get back to you.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that,
Yep.
Yeah, and then just be you and be a human, right? And remember that you're working with a human. And it's hard, right? A lot of times, I'm sure you deal with your fair amount of tire kicker, angry people as well, right? Like, dude, fuck off, like, never call me again. If you're not able to give me $300,000 more than the house is worth, whatever the case may be, like, it's easy to get grinded down and forget that the people that you're working with do have an issue often. They have a problem. Sometimes it's an emotional problem, and they really need your help,
Yep.
So you got to show up and be the best version of you for anybody that is working with sellers in any capacity.
Yep. Anybody who's in sales, whether it's real estate or anything like that, like, we've had a couple people on the team before who would get, like, real frustrated, and then you can hear it in their voice, because I listen to their calls, and, like, I'll, like, even myself, like, if I get frazzled about something, I walk away for a bit.
Yeah.
I just
do whatever you got to do. Reset somehow.
Yep.
Because it's easy to have it stick literally even the entire day, right? Like, people talk about, I got cut off in traffic this morning, and as a result, my entire day, I'm miserable. It's like, that's kind of crazy when you think about it from an outside perspective. But when it happens to you, you're like, man, yeah, I have kind of been pissed off for the last 4 hours because this one guy cut me off and gave me the finger. That's stupid when you think about it, but it's what we do.
Exactly.
But if you're at least cognizant of it and you can try to mentally work through that, and how do I kind of shift my mental state? Puts you in the right frame, right?
Exactly.
So last thing I want to touch on, you said you got students, you got people that you're teaching how to do creative deal structure, wholesaling, the whole nine. Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it all started like last summer. We had a couple people reach out to us and say, hey, like, how are you doing this? I'd love to learn. Me and Jay didn't really have the idea that we were going to take on students at the time, but we said, sure, like, let's figure it out. Let's do it. So we started one-on-one coaching with them. And then after a few months of them being with us, they did a couple deals, both of them. And it was like the most, like, the best feeling ever. It's like a proud dad moment, even though I don't have kids.
Yeah, man.
And then from there, we realized, okay, it's not just teaching them creative finance. What was it that we didn't learn when we started? And we started jotting down all these things. And our main focus with our students is helping them run a business, leveraging social media, organic marketing, and other forms of paid marketing to do creative finance deals in wherever market they are in the country, and also build a streamlined business out of it and be a proactive investor, right? We have had so many instances in our past where we were reactive because of something that came up.
Yep.
So every step of the way, we have like a full curriculum, and we either have like different length processes, however long they want to be with us. And our goal is by the end is for them to, if they haven't gotten that situation, they at least know how to deal with it at that point.
Dude,
and then
that's fantastic.
Implement delegation. Jay created a VA training course that she gives them. And we teach you how to hire and train VAs from afar and how to implement automation like CRMs and all that stuff.
Beautiful, man. So it's like legit. Somebody comes to you and they've never even done a deal before. And it's like you're giving them essentially turnkey from the start, ground up. Here's how you take the next steps and you build a freaking business.
Yep. We started all the way from day one. Like the first 2 weeks is legal structure for your business and accounting and bookkeeping and all that. Then we go to branding and marketing, acquisitions, TC, dispo, and then how to delegate and start to create some traction in your business.
Dude, that's beautiful. That's fantastic. And how are people learning about you doing this? Is it also from just what you're sharing on social?
Yeah, right now it's really just kind of been word of mouth. We just by doing deals and being in the market, we've had people reach out to us and ask us to pick our brains, so that we hop on a call, and it winds up being that we're the right fit. Because we only do one-on-one for the time being, we don't do like small group or anything. We can only take on a certain amount of people.
Sure.
So when somebody reaches out and we talk with them and we lay out on the table like, hey, this is what it would look like for you, as long as it's something that you're willing to commit to, because it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
Okay. So what would you say if you were to define that commitment? What does that look like? What are you explaining?
Absolutely. So a lot of times we'll have questions, hey, what's the time commitment for something like this? What do I need to be involved in? Do I have any costs associated? So we basically break it down for them. We're like, look, if you're coming to us, we're going to teach you how to do organic lead generation from day one. If down the road you have the budget and you want to do paid, we'll get into that. But for now, we're going to teach you how to do organic lead generation. It's a time for money type situation. It's your time that we're going to be placing out there, right? So I don't want you to come into this with the anticipation you can work 2 hours a day and you're going to have a deal.
Yep.
Right? If you feel like you have a jam-packed schedule and you work a crazy 9 to 5 and you're only going to be able to work an hour in the morning and an hour at night, it may not be the right fit. Everybody can learn how to do it. Our students' biggest struggle is time management, which is something else that we totally get into. We're always transparent with the students up front. And we just say, hey, look, like expectation-wise, I want you to know that you're starting a business. We're not just going to help you start a side hustle. And when you start a business, you're going to probably work double the amount of hours that you're working at your full-time job if you have one right now. And some people get scared and they say, look, it's not for me right now. And that's cool.
Yep.
Some people who say, yeah, I'm ready, let's do it. Then we say, let's get you onboarded.
Dude, I love that. And again, that comes back again to transparency and education and everything, you know?
Yep.
But so through that, you're basically telling someone, essentially, for you to come on board, I want you to be okay with devoting 40 hours a week to this.
Yeah, exactly. And then some people say, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And then me and Jay give them our firsthand experience of,
right, because you did it.
Exactly. And we just let them know, hey, it is doable, I promise you, but I'm going to let you know what the sacrifices are going to be. We lived with my mom for a while, right? You don't have to go live with your mom. It's an exaggeration, but like we cut our living expenses. we weren't going out clubbing on Fridays and Saturdays at 23, 4 years old, where our friends were getting obliterated, right?
Yep.
Like, we weren't having the Shore House in Sea Isle or in Seaside, New Jersey, right? We weren't doing those things. So do you have the ability in your mindset to be able to sacrifice at least for the next couple of years, right? And if you can, the next 6 to 10 months while you're with us, I promise you, if you can devote that and have that sacrifice mentality in your head, you're going to make it and you will do great.
Dude, that's huge. And setting those expectations with anybody that's coming into your group from the start, eliminates a lot of dealing with people that, do have that mindset. Yes, I can work an hour every other day and I'll be able to make, an extra $30,000 a month. It's like, well, yeah, you can definitely make any amount of money that you want, but not without the effort and not without the time. And it's not going to be sexy. A lot of it is going to suck.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's perfect expectations to set because the sky is the limit, right?
Yep.
There's so much potential. You're doing impactful things. And, it's really awesome, the journey that you're on, man. I'm excited to continue watching as you grow and build this thing.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's really fulfilling, and it's sometimes scary to realize, like, it's only been, like, 2.5 years, 3 years. And, like, sometimes you pinch yourself, and you're like, oh, my God, is this real, right?
Yep.
But we've learned so much along the way, and it's been a wild ride. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's like not over yet, man. Yeah. It's just going to get crazier,
It's like
just
King Dakar every day.
That's the truth. That's the truth. I posted on Facebook the other day. I'm going to have to, I don't know how I'm going to set it up structurally or anything, but like I just made a post asking people about like their craziest war story related to real estate. And it's like so many people were dropping stories in there that I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
this stuff's wild. Like, and I got some crazy ones, brother. I got some crazy ones. But I was like, man, somehow we need to make these into some sort of short form content, right? It's like have everybody on for a 3-minute video or something, Like we deal with some crazy stuff in this industry. So
yeah, man.
So if people want to find you, if they want to reach out to you specifically for your program, how do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 ways. One, if you want to reach out through Instagram, I'm Roman with Mike, Roman. Or if you'd like, you can reach out to me directly. My cell number is 267-819-2539.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. And so you're on all the social media platforms. Yep. You do TikTok as well.
Not TikTok.
Yet. All right. All right.
Are you on TikTok?
I am. I don't do very well on there, but it's mostly like podcast clips and everything that end up getting repurposed for all the different platforms and everything. And I have some good software automations I'll hook you up with as well.
That's cool.
Good stuff.
And YouTube would be the last one.
And YouTube. Okay.
Roman's Creative Academy on YouTube.
Perfect. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
Well, we'll link all your stuff in the show notes and everything. This has been an awesome conversation. I was super happy to have you today, man. I think this is going to be impactful for a lot of people.
Thank you, Drew. It was great talking with you, man.
Appreciate you, brother.